of us have a lot more confidence in our arm and ability to reach out and touch you than I do when I look at the empty front of this room. Thank you for being here. I'm going to make a few comments on a couple slides, and then Dr. Brown is going to take over. But I thought it would be good to maybe set the stage for some of our budget process this year, which was a little different than it has been because of the uncertainty that we have. What we control is our destiny in terms of have we been successful at educating students and trying to see them progress and graduate. And for the fourth year in a row, we're the #1 institution in the state of Tennessee in Complete College Tennessee Act outcome metrics. So that's about $1 million for us. And it's a reallocation of a pie that happens, and if you're a low performer, you're going to have money taken away, and if you're a good performer, you can get some money. We've been really fortunate. How do we maintain this momentum? How do we continue the progress? And how do we stay at the top of what we certainly want to work on? Another factor that impacts the budget you're going to hear about is that we have carry-forward funds. And as we looked at putting our budget together, trying to have a heavy higher education price index-based inflationary tuition increase, we were trying to build a budget with a 2% increase in tuition for this coming year. What we were told is, you don't need money, you have money. This would generate about $2 million, about $1 million per percent tuition increase. That's a significant amount of money, but when you have money sitting there unused, the president's argument to us was, you have $2 million, you don't need this, spend it. So as funny as it may seem, that actually impacted our budget and what we could do. It will impact how we operate because we do have to spend down carry forwards. It's a fact of life and something we're going to have. And the budget that you'll see has no tuition increase built into it. We are at the bottom of the tuition in terms of Tennessee State and Austin Peay and us are the lowest tuition for four-year universities. Austin Peay and Tennessee State spend more per student than we do, and I don't know where they're getting the money, but they are able to do that. So we're a real bargain in the state of Tennessee, and part of it is we held down tuition in the past and we could have increased it. Our focus and what drives us has to be student success and the quality of our academic experience. That's what we focused on. That's what's driven us to the top of these Complete College Tennessee outcome metrics. And I think that's what differentiates UTC is the passion to make a difference that all of you have each and every day. And it's faculty, staff, students, our community, everyone who helps empower us and offer opportunities to our students. I can tell you overall we're in really good financial shape. We have a lot of carry forward money, some that we're going to need to spend down. It may make the budget people a little nervous, but that's what we're going to need to do. So we're planning a no tuition increase for this coming year. It's going to give us a tight budget, but you'll see there's still investment built into this budget. We're still able to do things. We're not planning budget reductions in order to make ends meet. For next year, we've got a graduating 4 tuition plan, 15-4 tuition plan that was approved by the Board of Trustees a little over a week ago. That will give us, for the next 4 years, a couple $1 million a year of increased revenue as we phase in that tuition model. If we couple that with a HEPI, higher education price index increase in tuition, 2 to 3% is probably where it's at now. Who knows what's going to happen in a few years from now, but right now we're in the 2 to 3% range. That's pretty modest. If we put that into this model, we should have enough funding to make some real investments and do what needs to be done to address the advisors in our academic units, to look at a student success center in the College of Arts and Sciences, which can be part of the new Lupton Hall renovation project. Once we complete it, we'll have a place for that to be housed and really make a difference in our largest student body-wise college. So I think things look really hopeful for the future. We will have a new board of trustees, so that's coming. And look, I think that they'll reach agreement and pass both houses last week. And I would look for an announcement on who our new trustees will be in the next 2 weeks. And I don't know anything about who they'll be, but I think they're going to try and get them announced and approved very quickly before the legislature is out of session. So moving from 27 members down to 11. And a non-voting student, I think, was the final thing. So that's kind of the backdrop for what you're going to hear. This year is a pretty tight budget, but things are going to work out. You'll see a lot of investment, and it's overemphasized, expressed in the academic programs, and you'll see that in terms of where the largest financial commitments are going to be. And next year, as part of what do we look at, that looks really good. So you've all been great stewards of funding, and you've focused on our students, and I think that's driven us to where we are now, and we're looking forward to the future. But I'll turn it over to Dr. Brown, who will pick up from here with the details.
Thank you, Chancellor. Let's thank Chancellor Engel for his leadership with this budget process. I want to say good afternoon to all of you, and I said earlier that the money gets passed out to the first 2 rows first, but I really won't do that. Let me start by thanking all of you today for your stewardship and planning with this year's budget process, more particularly the executive leadership team, my peers who work with the Chancellor to build the budget model process. I really do want to thank all of them for their involvement with the overall planning. We also pause and thank Provost Dooley, who also serves as co-chair of the budget and planning process with me. And I really want to thank him for his leadership, along with former Provost Gerald Ainsworth. To the deans and directors and department heads, I want to thank all of you for your continuing involvement, support, and feedback on the budget and planning process, and certainly in terms of shared governance, those of you who work with UPRAC, our University Planning and Resource Allocations Committee, thanks to all of you. That includes our exempt staff council, our non-exempt council, our faculty senate, our graduate student council, the SGA, all of these shared governance groups, including the Budget and Economic Status Committee of the Faculty Senate. We've had dialogue over the months concerning this budget process. I'd be remiss too if I didn't thank my right and left hands, Tyler Forrest and Chris Urbisman. Let you guys raise your hands for their ongoing work. Give them a round of applause. Good work. They tend to work with all of us throughout the year. So today I want to begin to talk about the budget and planning process. What are our priorities and goals? You don't have to take copious notes with this presentation. We're going to post this entire slide deck to the Budget and Financial Planning website, and you'll have an opportunity to kind of digest more of this and give us more feedback. So I wanted you to know that, trying to be very transparent here. Our goals in this process is to align our budget priorities with our strategic plan. You're going to see every major investment that we move forward this year must align with the strategic planning priorities of the institution. Another goal is to build better understanding of the budget and transparency of the process. I kind of call it grassroots budgeting. We want to make sure that everyone walking around the university, regardless at whatever level you serve or what capacity, we want you to fully understand the budget process. And within your own individual department, surely you should know what's in your budget. So we're going to have a test on that, okay? course, we want to build upon our prior strong financial stewardship and fiscal position. The Chancellor talked a little bit about the fact that we're in a strong financial position with carry forward funds, but you're going to see me ask you to begin the process of trying to spend down some of those funds in a real strategic way. Want to broaden inclusion with fiscal planning. That's why we broadened UPRAC to make sure that all the deans were present. We've had great conversations with our department heads and all the divisions throughout the university, making sure that we broaden inclusion in this process. And again, working very, very closely with UPRAC was a key goal. What are our issues going forward? When you take a helicopter look at the budgeting and financial issues within the state of Tennessee for any public four-year institution in the state. One for us was getting past this 15-4 tuition model, making sure that we could have consistent revenue coming in to address some of our critical needs. There'll be a few slides on that. Roadblock courses, having enough faculty on the ground to make sure that a student can actually complete their curriculum design in 4 years. So we were very successful. I want to again thank Chancellor Engle for working with our board and our president in terms of getting that passed for implementation in 2019. You're going to continue to see public universities talk about out-of-state tuition benchmarking. How much does it really cost an out-of-state student to attend the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga? What's a competitive price point? We'll talk a little bit about that. The tuition environment moving forward is not a statewide issue, it's a national issue that everyone wants tuition reduced. They would like for students to leave a four-year experience with reduced debt load, but how do we ensure quality of the degree and making sure we've got enough resources in-house to ensure that degree is viable? Then we have this disaggregation of public higher education in Tennessee with what we're calling the LGIs, the locally governed institutions, and the Complete College Tennessee Act. The Chancellor alluded to the fact that for the fourth year, we remain the top performing public university in Tennessee. And I want to thank all of you for your contributions in making that happen. But it is a very competitive environment in Tennessee. And if you don't remain competitive, you lose money. It's a zero-sum game. The pie does not get bigger. They just move the dollars within the pie. So you're going to see us pick up almost $1 million because we're doing really well with that. But we've got to keep the momentum and keep on top of our game. Compensation planning will continue to reign large across the state of Tennessee. We get our job done through talented people like many of you who are sitting there today. So how do we deal with equity and market? How do we deal with compensation benchmarking? You're going to see us talk a little bit about that, and you'll see this budget reflect that. It's not a new issue, but it certainly is a forward issue, is campus safety. As this campus has grown, as you look at the national landscape, all the things that are happening in K-12 institutions and in our public setting, how safe are we? How conducive is the campus for instruction by making sure it remains safe? And so campus safety becomes a big issue for us. Having quarterly budget meetings, we will continue that process, working with the budget office, making sure that your budget stays aligned quarterly. We will also be looking at these carry forward expenditures. We will never tell you how to spend your budget. We will tell you, though, what's in it and how well you're doing with your burn rate at the end of the day. And then one of the things we're going to do going forward with the budget office, we're going to have budget and financial planning training sessions to allow financial managers, department heads to come work with us on how to really manage a budget. We'll define fund accounting for you, E&G budgets versus restricted accounting. How do you move money within an account? We will do all of that for you, and we're excited about being able to work collaboratively with all of you in terms of understanding your budget and planning processes. I won't go over this too much, but again, all of our budget and financial investments are aligned with the strategic plan of the institution. These represent the 4 strong goals. Today, goal number 3, ensuring stewardship of resources through strategic alignment and investments. That's what budgeting planning is all about. That's what we're doing today. We're focusing on goal 3, but all of these goals are important in terms of when we fund a budget moving forward. Very quickly, our timeline, you can see kind of where we are in the process. We're here at April the 2nd, hosting this town hall meeting. Next week, President DiPietro and his leadership team will be on the campus to have a system to campus budget meeting. We will go through a lot of this data with him, but we will also be talking about longitudinal budget issues, right? All those things that will keep UT Chattanooga viable. Also, I'm going to be talking to him about system charges too. I always like to reduce system charges as we go forward. Let's take a quick look at the budget right now. I always like to give you an overview before we start talking about New Year allocations. Kind of what are we doing with the current budget, our revised 18 budget right now? Well, I will tell you that our budget is strong. The state of the university is healthy financially. We're proposing to spend on the ENG side about $171.9 million. Much of that comes from tuition and fees, about $108 million of that, 66% of the aggregated ENG revenue coming into the university is driven by students. Now, when you look at state appropriations, it is getting much better. About $51 million at about 31% of the budget. Over the last 10 years, we have noticed a continually increase in state appropriation, and we really appreciate that. For the last 2 years, Governor Haslam has completely, fully funded the funding formula, and it has driven new revenue to state four-year institutions. We're very, very pleased with that. Bear in mind that there is no state statute that requires state government to fund higher education in the state. Every dollar they invest is a discretionary dollar that they invest. So it must mean that your value proposition is really, really good. They do see the value in terms of what you are doing here. Grants and contracts, a very small percentage. Sales and services, about $5.3 million there. And again, how do we spend out this current budget? What are our priorities? Well, I say that budgetary expenditures do reflect the priorities that an institution sets. So when you look at it accordingly, the majority of this budget is spent on what our mission is. At the end of the day, we teach. It is about instruction and the academic enterprise. When you look at about 43% of this budget is spent on instruction, another 8% of that is spent on academic support. As you see, bringing up about 13% or $21 million in the physical plant. Institutional support, about $12.6 million there. Public service, $2.7 million. Research, $2.4. I'm very glad that this research number continues to rise and improve over prior budget years. We're very, very pleased with that. So all in all, the university is pretty healthy financially on the ENG side of the house, how we spend money. So when we begin this process, we want you to know that there are other proposed new revenue sources that will come into the institution. You will see under tuition, zero. That will probably be for this campus when the board meets in June, a recommendation of zero tuition and fee increase for UT Chattanooga. Differential tuition will bring in about $90,000. State appropriations and CCTA outcome productivity growth, about $1.4 million. Again, state appropriation, a file that the governor sent for our salary pool, about $1.4 million. Now, what you will see there is that that's not nearly enough to fund the entire 2.5%. But they take credit for it. But we will find the rest of the money to make sure that we can deliver a 2.5% raise pool for faculty and staff here at the university. Here's a good number that I want you to see, this $842,000, that's CCTA outcome productivity rebalancing. Rebalancing is a nice, pretty financial word that says we took that money from someone else. That makes it feel better, right? But when you're at the top of the heap in CCTA, you really do get rewarded for that. So we picked up almost $900,000 there. The state was really good. They did fund increases in state health insurance at $263,000. We pick up another almost $400,000 in lab fees and seat fees and program fees. We're glad to do that to support the academic mission. Here's a good one here too. $1.5 million of revenue, these are recurring funds, are from the 2017-18 FTE increase. More students taking more hours equals more funding for the institution. It's even more impactful when we can sustain those students from their freshman to their sophomore year, or even for one full year. It's very, very important. So again, new revenue that we're looking at, about $9.1 million of new revenue. You might say that's a really good thing, and I think that's a really good thing, but you're going to see that this does not nearly meet the need of what was recommended within this entire budget and planning process. Now, I want all of you, if you have a question, you can raise your hand. Don't feel like you can't ask a question here, but at the end of the presentation, there are mics around, and we will have Q&A. But if you got a burning question, I'll recognize a hand. The other thing that we deal with is mandatory fees. Everything from student activity fees, debt service fees, health service fees, athletic fees, green fees, technology fees, library, transportation, facility fees, international fees. All of these flow into making up the budget as well. You can see that we charge students, per student, about $1,776 in mandatory fees. I put that out there because every year there's a request coming from the university, hey, can we increase those fees? And I want you to know there's not much elasticity in this current fee structure right now. In fact, UTC is pretty much at the top of the heap in the state in terms of mandatory fees. So we have to be real selective when we talk about increasing those mandatory fees. Any question about that? Thank you. When we look at the uses of the proposed new revenue in terms of where it comes from at the end of the day, recurring revenues of about $6 million, again, comes from state appropriation. Everyone talks about, that's not nearly enough, but when you look comparatively across southern states, our state of Tennessee pretty much invests pretty good in terms of public higher education support when you look across the SREB. So I am really glad at what the state continues to do in terms of state appropriation. Would we like a little more? Absolutely. We would love to have more, but they're doing pretty well. Differential tuition and fees, again, you see that line, enrollment growth at about $1.5 million. And of course, you're going to see us recommend spending non-recurring revenues out of our reserves, again, spending down some of that carry forward reserve at about $3.2 million to put this budget together. Any questions so far? Everybody in the back kind of nod for me so I know you're getting it. Okay, all right. Everyone's scared to sit up front. I'm going to pass the plate to the back when I get finished. When we look at the proposed expenditures, I wanted to show you that the new expenses, how we're going to spend out that $9 million. You're going to see accordingly that almost 1.4 million, will go to academic affairs, finance and administration, about 400,000 of that. Small amount in student development. We'll talk a little bit about that. Research and graduate school, another small amount. Communications and marketing, very key things, but a small amount. Enrollment services, you'll see us talk about investments there, but you're going to see that large line in institutional support. About $2 million of that is the 2.5% raise pool. About $2 million of those funds. So when we looked accurately at the request and the summaries of that, from the Chancellor to the Division of Athletics, Finance and Administration, Academic Affairs, Research and the Graduate School, Enrollment Management, Student Development, Communications and Marketing, and Institutional Support, some $16.3 million of requests came through the budget and planning process. And I'd like to tell you that every one of those requests were very good requests. I wish we could have put $16 million on the table to make that happen. They did, all the departments went back and really set strong priorities, but it's just not feasible to fund $16 million worth of requests. So over the last 3 months, we've asked the leadership team and our vice chancellors, working with the deans and department heads and other administrative department heads, to kind of go back and trim this budget. Let's take a look at basic needs, strategic needs as we move forward. And if you can look here, we cut $7.1 million over the last 3 months from that $16 million request. And I will tell you, I'd like to say this was a very collegial, collaborative operation. We grunted a lot in the executive leadership team conference room there, but most of the times, these are very good colleagues, very good peers who have really supported moving forward. Those things are very strategic for this university. I'm very, very pleased with that process. So at the end of the day, our current request for funding is about $9.1 million. And that's what you will see me go through, those major investment recommendations today. Everybody nod? Okay, we're all right. So let's start with the Chancellor's Office in terms of what we're recommending for investment there. A recurring revenue of about $103,000 there, a total really. The highlights of the uses of those funds, of course, Title IX, Title IX, and Title IX. Everything from getting a Title IX trainer in and training for the Title IX team and promotions and publications from Title IX. A lot of this is also being driven by the UT system, who have said to campuses, you must enhance that operation and make sure that we stay compliant with federal law. I see Stephanie is in, and when I talk Title IX, she just smiles. So Stephanie, thank you for all that you do. And I do thank the Chancellor's Office for their commitment to make sure that this campus is totally compliant with the Title IX process. Any question about the Chancellor's Office? Steve, you're good to go. Next budget we'll look at, of course, is the budget that I manage, Finance and Administration. You will see recurring revenues of $266,425, non-recurring revenues of $230,280, for a total of $496,705. What's the highlights there? Well, we're continuing to invest in campus safety. We're recommending the hiring of 2 state-certified additional police officers. Why would we do that? We picked up so much square footage. The campus is spread out now. Faculty and staff in the state office building and the MAP building continue to say, hey, Richard, we've got to have police personnel coming through these buildings. And if you look at the national landscape, one must keep a campus safe. How many of y'all agree to that? So we think that we need to continue to make those investments. We've done some benchmarking there, and we know the numbers we need to get to. We can't get there in a year. So we're going to try to recommend that we phase this in over 2 to 3 years to make sure that we can get to the level where a competitive urban campus needs to be. So we really do appreciate the team for working with that. The other one, of course, is an assistant director of McKenzie Arena. What we wake up with at McKenzie Arena is that 100% of the staff can retire today. And there's very little succession planning there at the arena. Not one backup position in a major operation that not only supports the campus, but supports athletics as a major customer there. So we're just asking for one position there as an assistant director, operating director for Obie Webster in case Obie walks out the door. So Vanessa, tell Obie don't quit. Also, one of the things we're recommending $150,000 for is additional investment in custodial and ground support. This campus is one of the most beautiful campuses in the entire UT system. And our ground staff work really, really hard. You'll see them out there really doing a superb job. We just need more of them, as well as custodial support services. We've expanded the square footage on campus, almost 800,000 square feet, and really not added much to personnel. So that's what we have there in M&O operations. And again, you're going to see a little bit of money in institutional support for something called utilities. For academic affairs, Provost Dooley, a major allocation here, which is appropriate, recurring $1,206,000, non-recurring $275,000, for a total recommendation this year of $1.4 million for academic affairs. You will find that much of this money is being spent for current faculty, all commitments that are already there. To fund current faculty positions, 3 of them that are already funded on soft money. social work faculty positions, 2 per the accreditation obligations. One of the things we always try to work with deans and department heads on is trying to meet the accreditation needs for any particular academic unit. So this came up here in the social work program. We're funding 1 current library position. I saw Dean Litka there. Where is she? Hello. All right. Transition engineering faculty positions to E&G funding. A lot of times faculty roll in under soft money or even differential tuition. And in order to have flexibility in using those funds, we have to roll them on to the state E&G budget. To develop a student success center and advising positions, 2 of those. We're working with the College of Arts and Sciences to strengthen the Career Center. I see Dean Hine there, and academic advising in that college, one of the largest colleges on the campus. So we're proud to do that, to make that recommendation. The College of Business Bloomberg Lab funding, some additional funds for that, along with 4 graduate assistants for our PhD programs. Library funding to accommodate increased hours of operations. The library continues to be, and as it should be, a major academic component of the university. Students want more access, right, Dean Litka? And so we're trying to fund that particular obligation. Research and the graduate school, you'll see a recurring revenue recommendation of $125,485. That's the total budget, and the highlights there. We want to fully fund a GIS positions, 2 of those. GIS has really been utilized not only internal to campus across all divisions, but external community-based entities also rely on our GIS function. So we're proud to make this investment in GIS. We're also going to try to fully fund a current assistant dean position for the graduate school. Enrollment management, this is Yancey Freeman's shop. You'll see a recurring revenue recommendation of $376,520 and a non-recurring revenue of $52,000, total about $428,820. You saw that $1.5 million of enrollment growth revenue. That's why this division is so very important across the institution to all of us who are sitting here. So you see us recommending a director of student success position, supporting an admissions counselor position, travel funding for admissions recruitment. One of the things that Vice Chancellor Freeman is trying to do is to get our message across the state of Tennessee and out across this region to make sure we stay competitive and our value proposition is out there. Technology and software funding for financial aid and career placement, records, and the Mox One Center, an upgrade there. Investment in the study abroad program by putting in a coordinator position for study abroad. Divisional budget manager position. I want to focus on that because one of the things that Tyler, Forrest, and Chris are really asking all of our major divisions is make sure you have someone who is very knowledgeable about managing your budget and hiring that person to work more collaboratively with the budget office. So Yancey is recommending to do that. And of course, a banner analyst position. Any questions about that? Student development. Dr. Trey Cotton is here. Trey, welcome aboard. New budget allocations were recommended in this division. Recurring, $182,587, and a non-recurring allocation of about $100,000. Total, $282,587. Highlights for this budget, he too would like to have a strong steward and a divisional budget manager. Student Affairs has so many budgets, both student funds and restricted funds, E&G funding. Desperate need to have a divisional budget manager in that role and in that function. Adding an assistant director for NPHC advisor position is very critical to the functioning of Student Affairs. Also, adding one development officer position. Trey wants to work more closely with Brian Rowland in raising money for Student Affairs, special projects, and programs. UC operating funds for building improvements. The University Center is besides the library, It's probably one of the most heavily trafficked buildings on campus. And we're constantly looking for ways to improve custodial services, maintenance services. Trey just told me his elevator doesn't work well. That scares me because he only has one. So it's those kinds of issues that we get into when we're talking about here in this beautiful building here. And of course, he's looking at adding emergency housing when students are in need. What can he do to have flexibility to make sure he can provide emergency housing for students? Communication and marketing. You see a recurring recommendation of $124,763, non-recurring of $5,000 for a total of $129,763. Highlights from this budget include a lead web administrator position and a website redesign. All of you know, and we've heard this throughout the budget and planning process, our website needs work. How many of y'all would agree to that? You can get on the website. It's very difficult to navigate. It takes about 5 clicks to get to things. And, we need improvement on the website. So George is looking at a total redesign of this website. I'm excited about that because it is the forward face of this institution. So I really do want to thank the executive leadership team for supporting him through that. Also, he's looking for a small amount of funds for magazine printing and shipping. Again, you've got to get your value proposition out to your alumni. Let them know you're still here, doing all right. Here's the biggest piece of the budget we have. It's what we call the institutional budget. These are things that impact all of you and all of us. Every main division across the university deals with this institutional budget. You'll see recurring revenue there of about $3.2 million and non-recurring of $2 million, a total of $5,289,000. Here are the highlights. $2 million of that is really the 2.5% compensation pool, inclusive of benefits. One year we had that thing out there and people said, oops, you forgot benefits. One cannot forget benefits. So this includes full funding of the benefits that come with that compensation pool. I will tell you this morning, I had a conversation with the UT system regarding how will we utilize that 2.5% comp pool. Will we have any flexibility in the use of how we allocate those funds out? I will keep you posted on their responses. Many people have talked a little bit about doing market adjustments, doing across-the-board adjustment, right? How do we meld performance-based merit with a pool that small? So I'm getting a lot of feedback from a lot of people about that, so I will keep you posted about those conversations. Faculty promotion and UC Foundation rollovers and senior lectures, we have a $250,000 recurring line item to ensure that our faculty can be promoted from assistant to associate to full professor, and that comes with an automatic 10% increase in compensation. We've been doing that now for over 10 years, and it has really made a difference in terms of our faculty compensation. We've also included some funding there for lecturers as well in that promotional process. This year, we also have added a $100,000 line item for staff. Where's Lori Pugh? There she is back there. This is for market and compression adjustments for staff, and we will ask HR to take a look at that. Similar to what we have done with the faculty side, we're trying to do on the staff side as well to fix some of those compensation issues. The group health insurance rate increase is in there. That's funded. $200,000 for utility cost increase are funded there as well. Someone came in one day and the lights were out. I think the chancellor asked me, it went out, he was in my office, and the lights went out. He said, Richard, did you pay the bill? Yes, I've got to pay the utilities, okay? And when you expand the campus square footage, you've got to adjust your utility cost. And so we estimate that to be another $200,000 to this campus. And of course, one thing we have down here is system charge and UT Research Foundation charge. To date, because we're getting zero tuition, I am told that the system will not increase their charges. I will hold them to that next week. We will see if that will hold. So Tyler and Chris are kind of anxiously awaiting to see if that's going to be the case. And of course, here's another large area, competitive area, is scholarships as we move forward at the end of the day. 349,841 of recurring, 500,000 of non-recurring, total investment of about $849,000. Some of this includes restructuring and reinvestment of our scholarship program. We brought in consultants now to tell us where we should invest at what levels to make us more competitive. We're trying to respond to that, and of course, some of it is a reallocation of current scholarship dollars. We feel real good about what we're doing with student scholarships. One of the things you will see, any questions so far about the investments? Any hands? Yes, sir.
Yeah, what does the UT system fee pay for?
Okay, it's all it's all the support services of the UT system. They have things. We have counterparts on the campus. Their CFO office, who does budget and planning at the system level, capital projects. When we do a major capital projects, they have architects and planners and designers there. We contribute to that as well. HR, they have a system HR function. We actually pay a pro rata share for those services. Every campus within the system pays for that. That's what it's for. Yeah, they've been pretty good and transparent in the last 5 years about how they spend that money. In fact, that's part of their presentation when they come to the campus. So we're pleased about that, but I am also pleased that chancellors, like Dr. Engel that I work for, always hold them accountable to that as well, to those fees. One of the things you're going to see is an out-of-state tuition reduction in the graduate fee, which we think is really, really good in 2019. Domestic out-of-state graduate students are going to pay 50% of the current out-of-state tuition plus maintenance fee and mandatory fees. International students are going to be taxed an additional $8,000. It'll take approximately 45 new FTE to break even at a delta of about $800,000. We think that that's doable. Vice Chancellor Romagna in the graduate program thinks that's very doable. It makes us very competitive in terms of out-of-state graduate tuition and attracting those students into our campus. This would also drop us to about 105% of the THEC peer average for out-of-state tuition. And you see the numbers there. You know, are currently at 8,244. You see that our total domestic out-of-state tuition is $26,138. That's an awful lot. With this reduction, it will go down to $18,084. We think that's competitive, but we will monitor that. We will probably take a look also going forward at the undergraduate out-of-state tuition. We're just not ready right now to begin that benchmarking. I'm really excited about this. The Chancellor, I won't spend much time on this. The Chancellor's already told you about it, but we have been approved for 15 and 4, which will add about $2.2 million new dollars to this campus going forward. Students will be encouraged to take 15 hours and graduate in 4 years. If you do the math, you take under 15 hours, you're not going to do this in 4 years. No additional cost if you want to take anything above 15, take as many as you would like. Implementation in fall of 2019 gives us a full year to communicate this out to students. Now look at the bursars office folks. I know they want time to make sure we get this message out there, and Yancey Freeman and others. This has been supported by the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, right? But this will also limit our maintenance increases that year to the HEPI rate. HEPI runs from about 2% all the way up to 3% in most years. And it stands for the Higher Education Inflation Rate. Well, the success metrics for this new model, what will we be looking to obtain from putting in this 15 and 4 model? Again, decreasing time for students to graduate and obtain a degree, increasing our first-year retention rates. Here's the biggie: elimination of barrier courses. Imagine that a student needs a section of English, can't get that section till a second semester. That student may be here another year. We want to eliminate that, those kinds of barrier courses. Increasing our progression metrics, we're going to see the impact there. And of course, increasing the average number of student credit hours. We think students will take more hours under this 15 and 4 model. You've seen this. We're implementing very similar to the Martin model. Knoxville did this. Their cost was a whopping 25% for their students. We said no to that, and they did that in fall of 2013. Martin had a similar model that looked at students with less than 60 credit hours. They did it in fall of 2016. What we're hoping to do is very similar to Martin, 11% model for new students starting in the fall of 19. You'll see the cost here. The real aggregate cost for the tuition is about 8%, but when you flow in this 1776 of fees, it pushes it up to an aggregate 11%. So truth in advertising, if you would, is where we get to there. And of course, when we looked at the marking analysis with the implementation of this 15 and 4, what does that do to us in terms of tuition? How do we sit with the rest of the state? Right now, we're one of the lowest tuition universities in the state. We want to be competitive, not necessarily the lowest cost. I said, I don't want to become the value jet of higher education. I want to make sure we've got enough revenue to ensure the quality of our degree programs. This will put us right, very, very similar to other public four-year institutions in the state. In fact, UT Martin will be still ahead of us by about $100 there, but we think this is doable and very competitive for us. Any questions about that? Taking a look at undergraduate tuition and fees, one of the things I want you to look at is this out-of-state tuition at the top at $24,000. We think that's too high. We need to find the sweet spot on what out-of-state undergraduate tuition should be for us. And so we will be looking at that over the next year's budget cycle. But if you look at our tuition increases from 2015 to 18, very minimal growth. We're proud to say that we've managed our resources very well, been good stewards, and have actually lowered the cost. I held it constant for students who are acquiring a public four-year degree here at UT Chattanooga. I want to thank all of you for that. And of course, graduate tuition and fees, looking at 2019, you'll see us almost cutting that in half to $18,000. But again, on the graduate side, very minimal increases since 2015 on tuition. Any questions about tuition? Everybody still awake? Nod for me. Move now. Okay. Here's what I'm really proud of. You want to know why we're at the top of the heap at CCTA? That number tells the tale of the tape, as they say. 2,500 degrees awarded in 2016. Pretty strong numbers. We continue to graduate more baccalaureate degrees than most public four-year institutions across the state of Tennessee. The challenge there is that when you graduate that many, one has to bring more in, so enrollment management becomes an issue, but degrees awarded continue to drive a lot of what we do. I always like to talk a little bit about our compensation investment. Faculty and staff want to know, what have you done as institutional leaders about compensation? I'm very pleased we took since a 2013 look back at institutional investment in people, human capital, as they say, compensation for faculty and staff. Across the board increases were 45% of what we spent, but we invested $6.4 million since 2013. In market and merit increases, another 43%, $6.1 million in those types of investments. And for our faculty, UC Foundation rollover, faculty promotions, Provost Dooley, $1.6 million of investment there. So we're very, very proud to say since 2013 to 19, $14.2 million of investment in people like yourself who get this work done. We're going to continue to say to the institution, compensation benchmarking will continue to be a priority, and as it should be. Our fund balance, this is the fund that is required by the state of Tennessee, that all public institutions have. These are operating dollars in case something catastrophic happened. Can you pay a payroll? Can you exist? And we call this a fund balance. Our fund balance now is about 4%. The requirement is about 3%. So our fund balance is healthy right now. Very, very healthy. If the chancellor ran into something catastrophic, he could fund it. It is also an indicator of institutional financial health. So you will see that we're pretty strong there. Notes and bonds payable, this represents how leveraged the institution is. Do we have more capital projects on the books than we can find debt, revenue to service that debt? And the answer is we're not leveraged. For every capital project we have a dedicated funding source, recurring, to fund that debt. Right now in 2017, we're at $78 million of those projects. Many of them are in Trey Cotton Shop in student affairs. Take a deep breath, you're okay. And again, in 2019, we will add $30 million to that as we look at bringing on the West Campus housing parking garage to that particular project. We bond that out. This is another indicator of growth. When you look at the square footage and growth of the physical plant, from 2013, we're at about 2.4 million square feet of space. Roll up every year. We continue to add square footage. Here in 2017, 3.1 million square feet of space. That's why the plant is so stretched, almost 800,000 additional square feet, and that needs custodial and ground support and maintenance and operations. So that's why we had those investments there. Here's another indicator of institutional health. Our campus in the last 20 years, we've gone from a commuter campus to almost 36% residential. It has changed really the tone and the operations of this campus. When you look at occupancy rates of the residence halls, it is a very good indicator of enrollment growth and also of financial stability within that auxiliary unit. In many years, starting in 2014, you see this 126. Those were the number of students we had to find housing in hotels downtown. Last year, we actually contracted with a local housing unit for this 67 plus in 2018. We're also told, Brian, that the South Campus is filling very well, and even the new residence hall that we're opening in the fall already is filling up, right, Trey? It looks that we're in good shape. So the strategic decision to reinvest in student housing was a good decision for this campus. It was a very, very good decision. One of the things I always like to brag about, and Brian Rowland is sitting there, is that this campus has the good fortune to have the UC Foundation supporting this campus. This foundation has put in excess of $125 million into this campus since its inception. That is huge. But I wanted to give you a snapshot because it really does add excellence to everything that we do here at UT Chattanooga. So to give you a quick snapshot, where's Harriet? I thought I saw her in there. All right, Harriet, there's the CFO of the foundation back there. The endowment value has a quick snapshot of 228, 137 million. I hope the Dow continues to do well, but it is doing very well in Pool A, and that those funds continue to grow. And temporary funds, kind of liquidity funds, of about $10.6 million. When you look at the disbursements, though, in terms of the value they add back to this campus, the main endowment adds unrestricted distributions of about $1.8 million. They fund another $1 million of academic programs, $500,000 of professorships, $1.1 million of scholarships, and faculty development at $26,000. Doing one commencement exercise, I thought this was really demonstrative of the importance of this foundation. The speaker asked, if you have been touched by a UC Foundation scholarship, a professorship, a grant, stand. 90% of that 11,000 in there stood up. Pretty nice. For a public university like UTC in our size, we are probably endowed at the top of the pack. Brian, am I correct? And this is an excellent program. They're doing really, really well. They also help us with the South Campus housing, which is also doing very, very well. So we are thankful for the UC Foundation. Folks, I think that's the last slide. You can take a deep breath now and move, get the blood flowing again. We're going to have Q&A. So all the vice chancellors, I see it here. If you've got a question, there's some mics out there. We will try to answer your question. If I can't answer, I will point to one of these colleagues that are in here. Not everyone at once. I am going to pass the plate back there in the back. Any questions about it? General comments, what do you think about the process? How many of you like it? Is it okay? All right? The investments that we're recommending, how many of you think those are okay? Let me see the hands. Great. Good. Any questions? Yes, sir.
I need to come up there.
Someone get a mic to you. Okay. Laura will get a mic to you. She's our fan.
Okay, hi, my name is Simon Rogers. I'm a student here at UC, engineering major, sophomore. And I had just a few questions about the student development program.
Yes.
I wrote down a couple of notes. I saw that the budget for the student development program was, I believe, $282,000.
Right?
And I saw that I just had a question about the increase with the 15 credit hours for your program that you guys are proposing for the 2018-2019 school year. So I'm saying, what are the, I guess, proposed student development programs, I guess, to help students balance that credit hour?
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, I would say if I were to take 15 credit hours in a semester, or I was an income freshman, I would like to balance that, or what influences on campus can help me develop better student habits?
So, your question is, what's the value of the 15 and 4?
No.
What are we using the money? What are we using the money on?
Oh, yeah. Let me answer that for you. The majority of the funds are going to be used for faculty positions. We're investing in faculty to make sure that if you need a section of English or math, biology, we have a faculty position there to ensure that that does not prevent you from graduating in 4 years. We're also using some of the money to develop new advisors, expanding our academic advising program to make sure that you understand the courses you need to take. That there's really a clear path to you graduating from the institution. To support students who may have a financial need, some of it will be used for scholarship support. We've looked at students in the second and third quartile, and we understand many of those families may need help, so we're going to use some of those funds to support scholarships. Good. Is that enough answer?
I just had one more slight question. In terms of student support services, I know that's a thing a couple of students have talked about with the SSS building being cut down and it becoming one floor, I believe 1,900 square feet to 900 square feet. And a couple of other, even in housing terms, students are paying dormitories going up to at least $300 and a $150 increase on the security deposit. Just funding in case, and I'm guessing my biggest thing is the funding going up and the number of credit hours to be a full-time student going up and less student development, I guess. This is how I'm seeing it based on the numbers I have. I was trying to see if I can get a little bit more information on the student support, I guess.
The 15 and 4 is,
There it is. 15 and 4 is fall of 19, so it's a year out. The student support services, they're moving, and what is the implication on that? They were at the table, didn't say anything. We realized there's some issues and we're trying to figure that out. That's not funded in the student development budget, I don't think. Trying to think of the other points you made, that for the student support services, we are trying to figure out where that comes. I wrote to Dr. Cotton and said, is this you? And no, it's not. It's actually in the College of Health Education and Professional Studies. So we are trying to make sure we provide the services for students to get out. We're looking at a process for exceptions for the 15 credit hours of who has to pay, just like the Hope Scholarship. will have an exception, whether it decreases if you don't take 15 credit hours, and that's pending legislation in the legislature right now. But we are, the deposit for housing is just to make sure that we don't have people, it doesn't increase the cost of housing, it goes for housing. That was simply to make sure people were holding the place and actually showing up, because we were turning away students and then we had people not show up. And that was something that Dr. Cotton raised to me as maybe that was too much. And he wasn't, I think, part of the decision, but that's something we're looking at. The housing in the new dorm is a little more money than the others because of the way it's financed. And we tried to bring that down as much as we could, using other funding to provide as affordable a price in housing as we could. We also looked at meal plans for this coming year, and if you're looking at starting as a student in fall of 18, in the student housing, if you're a junior or senior, there's no required meal plan. We used to have one, but you had an apartment with a kitchen, and that was an issue. But we're trying to hold down costs as much as we can. When you look at the inflationary costs, it's around 2.5% a year. So.
I get it, Floyd? We'll be working with Dr. Conlon and Benchmark and making sure, we're gonna make sure students have a great experience here. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Hey, how you doing? I'm a senior at UTC, of course, I'm here right now, but I'm a senior, and I also Tyler in SGA as well. Have a great relationship with Tyler on this issue, the 15-4 program. But me coming from Chattanooga State, I work with a lot of non-traditional students over there, and I work with a lot of people that have jobs and people that actually have needs outside of school. So one of my issues with the 15-4 program are those non-traditional students and forcing them by making them pay for 15 credit hours to take 15 credit hours instead of taking 12 credit hours, while not having a clear plan for support for those students. So when I talk about student services and the budget that was presented for student services, that budget for me is kind of scary, because if you don't have those support for those students that work jobs, that are single moms, that are those things, and I also like that Chancellor Engel, because he did put his proposition into the board to make exemptions for those people, but if those exemptions don't go through for those people, then we have a problem, because at that point, we're charging students for something that's unobtainable. So how do you correct a program that may become an issue for a certain demographic of our student population?
Well, you know, we think that we will look at some of those hard cases where curriculum falls into those particular issues. We'll take a strong look at that, right? But this model is really designed to change the mindset of students who really do take that 15 hours and really progress and get out of the university in 4 years. Because we know from our data, you're going to actually save money by doing that. At the end of the day, if you get out in 4 years, if you go another 5th year, it's about almost $40,000 additional cost there. That does not also indicate the opportunity cost you lose from not being able to have an employment within that year. So there's some real cost benefits for moving through this program and getting out on a 4-year period. We understand that there are some exceptions that we'll have to look at, and we're looking at that right now. We've got a year of plan.
I just have one more comment on that. So when, I don't know if you guys have filled out your FAFSA lately, but when you fill out your FAFSA, it asks you to make sure you have a financial plan to sustain you within 3 months of you joining the institution. And with this increase of 11% in the budget, the way that our FAFSA works, with it increasing to $5,936, don't quote me on that. But by that, you student, even of low income that receives a full Pell Grant as well as all student loans on top of that, would not no longer have that. Mind you, I'm not saying that that's a problem because we need to fund our institution in that way. But what I'm saying is that this way that the scholarship was broken down to us by Mr. Nancy Freeman and Tyler, where that they were going to give funding to those middle income students that will suffer the most, scholarships and those people that would need that access. But students like myself that have zero SEI coming into my family projected income, then for me, so depending on that Pell Grant, depending on scholarships, is how I get through my institution for the last 4 years. So by increasing that, as well as not having any support on the back end, where I have to go work a job and do all those type of things, I've taken 12 credit hours through my semesters and taken 6 credit hours over the summer in order to sustain that, but now that's no longer an option. So for me, I'm not trying to like be a dick, I'm gonna say that way. But if you guys don't support students in that way, like those students, if I want to go to Chattanooga State and have that career support services and have those people that were in the career support lab, I wouldn't be where I am now. So if we don't have that support, or we're not willing to extend that or extend those scholarships in those ways to not just the middle income families, but the low income students as well, and making sure it's dispersed the right way, then the students aren't going to be successful, and we don't want to dilute our education, so we just pass people through because we know that doesn't work. So that's it.
Your points are well taken, and one of the things we will do in this process is be fully transparent and accountable back to you. We've made a commitment to invest in scholarship support for students who really need that support. So we will come back within the next year or so and advise you on how we're investing those funds. We understand the sensitivity. We applaud you for what you're doing too, brother. Any other questions? Well, you've been good stewards for waiting this long. Again, we're going to post this entire slide deck on the Budget and Financial Affairs website. Take a look at that. If you would, if you have questions. We've got something called Budget Chat. You'll see my picture there, smiling, saying, ask a question, and we will get right back to you with an answer. If you just have a burning question, you can pick up the phone and call me or email me. Our Kyle, our Chris, more importantly, you can email the Chancellor of the University. Like transparent at the end of the day. Again, I want to thank all of you, especially my colleagues on the executive leadership team, for helping us manage through this process. State of our fiscal affairs, we're in a very good position. Thank you.